Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, watching the massive alien fleet that had appeared at the edge of human space. 12,000 ships from the Galactic Council hung in the void like angry metal wasps, their bioluminescent hulls pulsing with threat displays that had caught 100 species before humanity. "Admiral Morrison's transmission is coming through," reported Lieutenant Kim from the communications station. The main screen flickered to life, showing the grizzled face of Earth's highest-ranking military officer. "Captain Chen, I'm sure you can see our visitors. They've been broadcasting the same message for 6 hours now. I'm patching it through." The screen shifted to show a being that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a crystal formation. The Zilani hierarch's compound eyes reflected the bridge lights as its mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was their version of authoritative speech. "Primitive species of Sol 3, you will comply with Galactic Council Resolution 2847. Your expansion beyond your home system violates the containment protocols established for developing civilizations. You have 72 standard hours to withdraw all vessels to within 1 astronomical unit of your star. Failure to comply will result in enforcement action." Sarah felt her jaw clench. Humans had been exploring space for barely 2 centuries, but they'd already established colonies on 17 worlds. The idea of being caged in their own solar system was intolerable. "Admiral, what are our orders?" Morrison's weathered face showed a grim smile. The president was very clear, "Captain. We don't negotiate with bullies. The entire Third Fleet is being mobilized. You're to hold position and await reinforcements." "Sir, with respect, we're outnumbered 12,000 to 1. "Since when has that stopped humans, Captain?" The transmission ended, leaving Sarah staring at the alien armada. Her ship, a heavy cruiser with a crew of 800, was humanity's most advanced warship. Against the Council fleet, it was like bringing a knife to a gunfight. "Captain," called out her tactical officer, Commander Torres. "I'm detecting energy spikes across their formation. They're charging weapons." Sarah walked to the center of the bridge, her mind racing. Humanity had always been told they were primitive, that their technology was crude compared to the great galactic civilizations. The Council species had gravity manipulation, energy shields that could deflect entire stars, and weapons that could crack planets. Humans had kinetic projectiles, nuclear warheads, and the stubborn refusal to back down from a fight. "Open a channel to the fleet," she ordered. "Channel open, Captain." Sarah took a deep breath. "Attention Council vessels. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Defiance. You are in violation of human territorial space. You have 1 hour to withdraw your forces, or we will consider your presence an act of war." The bridge fell silent. Even her own crew stared at her in disbelief. Through the viewports, the alien fleet seemed to shimmer with what could only be described as amusement. The hierarch's response came within minutes. "Captain Chen of the primitive vessel, your threat is noted and dismissed. We have conquered species with technology thousands of years more advanced than yours. Your kinetic weapons cannot penetrate our shielding. Your primitive computers cannot match our tactical systems. Surrender now, and your species will be relocated to a reservation world where you can live out your existence in peace." "Counteroffer," Sarah replied. "You can take your ultimatum and shove it where your species keeps its dignity. We're humans. We don't surrender." What happened next would be remembered as the moment humanity announced itself to the galaxy. The Council fleet, confident in their technological superiority, launched what they considered a warning shot. A beam of concentrated stellar energy, enough to vaporize a mountain, lanced toward the Defiance. It should have been the end. But Sarah Chen had done something no alien commander would have considered. She had spent the last 6 hours not preparing to fight, but preparing to learn. Now, she shouted. The Defiance didn't try to dodge the beam. Instead, it flew directly into it. But the ship that emerged from the energy blast was not the same vessel that had entered it. In those crucial seconds, humanity's most advanced computer systems had analyzed every aspect of the alien energy weapon, broken down its frequency, its power source, its delivery method. And humans had done what they did best. They had improvised. The ship's hull, now crackling with alien energy it had somehow absorbed and redirected, turned toward the Council fleet. Every human vessel in the system did the same. They had all received the same data burst from the Defiance, and human engineers had done what they did better than any species in the galaxy. They had figured out how to make it work. Captain, Torres reported, his voice filled with wonder, we're reading massive energy signatures from the entire human fleet. Whatever we just did, it's spreading to every ship. Sarah smiled. Send a message to Admiral Morrison. Tell him humanity just learned how to speak the galaxy's language. Now let's teach them how to listen. The Council Hierarch's next transmission carried a note that humans had never heard from an alien before: uncertainty. Impossible. Your technology level indicates you should be incapable of energy manipulation at this scale. That's your first mistake, Sarah replied. You assumed our technology level meant something. Humans don't advance technology the same way you do. We don't slowly evolve over millennia. We steal, we adapt, we improve, and we do it all in the time it takes you to decide whether something is theoretically possible. Across the human fleet, weapons that had been kinetic projectiles were now wrapped in energy fields that multiplied their destructive power 100-fold. Shields that had been simple electromagnetic barriers now pulsed with the same stellar energy the aliens used. But the real shock came when the human ships began to move. Report, demanded the Hierarch. The human vessels are accelerating beyond their stated maximum velocity, came the reply from a junior council officer. They appear to have modified their propulsion systems in real time. Sarah couldn't help but laugh. You want to know our secret? We never built our technology to be perfect. We built it to be changeable. Every human ship, every weapon, every system was designed by people who knew they didn't have all the answers. So we made everything modular, adaptable, improvable. The first human counterattack came not as a coordinated fleet action, but as 800 separate experiments. Each ship captain, given the same basic data about alien technology, had found their own way to use it. Some ships had turned their cargo bays into massive energy cannons. Others had used the alien tech to create new forms of shielding. A few had done something that made their ships flicker in and out of existence, making them nearly impossible to target. This is impossible, the Hierarch transmitted, but its voice was no longer filled with authority. Your species has been in space for less than 2 of your centuries. We have been masters of these technologies for 50,000 years. Yeah, well, Sarah replied as the Defiance's newly modified weapons tore through a Council battleship's supposedly impenetrable shields. That's your second mistake. You've been using the same technology for 50,000 years. We've been improving ours for the last 6 hours. The battle that followed would become known as the Awakening War, though it lasted only 18 hours. The Council fleet, despite its overwhelming numbers and technological superiority, found itself fighting an enemy that evolved faster than they could adapt. Every time the aliens modified their tactics, the humans had already moved on to something new. By the time the alien reinforcements arrived, expecting to find the debris of a primitive human fleet, they instead found the wreckage of the greatest armada the Galactic Council had ever assembled. And, broadcasting from the heart of the battlefield was a message that would change the galaxy forever. This is Admiral Morrison of the United Earth Fleet to all Council vessels. You came here expecting to find a primitive species that would bow to your rules. Instead, you found humans. We don't bow. We don't obey. We don't follow rules we didn't help write. Consider this your only warning: the next time you come to our space uninvited, we won't just adapt your technology. We'll improve it beyond your recognition and send it back to you gift-wrapped in the hull of your flagship. The surviving Council ships departed without another word. 3 days later, every major civilization in the galaxy received the same message from Earth: humanity formally requests admission to the Galactic Council. We believe it's time for some new rules. 6 months after the Awakening War, Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the crystal corridors of the Galactic Council headquarters on Nexus Prime. The station, built by the ancient builders millennia ago, was a marvel of engineering that housed representatives from 3,000 different species. Today, it would host humanity's first formal session as the newest member of the Council. The irony wasn't lost on Elena. The same organization that had tried to cage humanity now found itself forced to accommodate them. The vote for human membership hadn't been unanimous, but it had been decisive. When a species could reverse engineer your most advanced technology in hours and turn it against you, diplomacy suddenly became much more appealing than warfare. Ambassador Vasquez, a melodious voice called out behind her. Elena turned to see Lyrith Moonwhisper, the elegant representative of the ethereal collective. The ethereals were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, beings of pure energy who had transcended physical form eons ago. I wanted to speak with you before today's session. Of course, Ambassador Moonwhisper. What can I do for you? The energy being's form shimmered as it conveyed what humans had learned was anxiety. My people have been monitoring the developments in your space since the war. The rate of technological advancement your species is achieving is concerning to many council members. Elena smiled politely. Concerning how? In the 6 months since your victory over the enforcement fleet, your species has established colonies on 47 new worlds, developed faster-than-light communication networks that surpass our own, and created defensive systems that our best scientists cannot fully comprehend. The hierarch fears that humanity represents an existential threat to galactic stability. And, what do you think, Ambassador? Lyrith's form pulsed with uncertainty. I think the galaxy has never encountered a species like yours. Most civilizations take millennia to advance from spaceflight to energy manipulation. You accomplished it during a single battle. Most species spend centuries debating the ethics of new technologies. You implement them first and worry about consequences later. It's unprecedented. Elena nodded thoughtfully. You know what I think, Ambassador? I think the galaxy has been stagnant for so long that you've forgotten what progress actually looks like. Before Lyrith could respond, Elena's communication device chimed with an urgent message from Earth. She read it quickly, her expression growing grim. Ambassador, I'm afraid I need to cut this short. It seems we have a situation that requires the Council's immediate attention. They entered the Great Assembly Chamber together, where 3,000 species had gathered in their various environmental suits, energy fields, and biological pods. At the center of the vast space, the hierarch of the Zilani stood before the Council's governing body, the Circle of Ancients. The ancient beings, each representing a different fundamental force of the universe, rarely spoke directly to the Council. When they did, it usually meant someone was about to die. The hierarch's mandibles were clicking rapidly as Elena approached the human delegation's assigned sector. Honored ancients, the human expansion continues to violate every established principle of galactic development. In 6 months, they have claimed more territory than most species acquire in 6 centuries. Their technological development curve suggests they will surpass even the builders within a decade. Elder Vorthak, a being of living darkness that represented entropy itself, spoke in a voice like colliding galaxies. The hierarch raises valid concerns. Humanity's rapid expansion could destabilize the carefully maintained balance we have preserved for millennia. Elena stood and activated the speaker system. Honored ancients, members of the Council, I request permission to address these concerns. A ripple of surprise went through the assembly. New species typically spent their first century in the Council as silent observers, learning the complex protocols before daring to speak. Elder Synthesis, a creature of pure mathematical concepts, made a sound like cosmic calculations. Permission granted, human representative. Speak. Elena took a deep breath. Honored ancients, the hierarch suggests that human expansion threatens galactic stability. I would argue that galactic stability is exactly the problem. The chamber erupted in surprised chatter from 1,000 different species. The hierarch's compound eyes fixed on Elena with what could only be described as outrage. You see, the Zilani leader hissed. This is precisely what we warned about. Humans show no respect for established order. You're absolutely right, Elena replied calmly. We don't respect your established order. And, do you know why? Because your established order has kept the galaxy in technological and cultural stagnation for 50,000 years. She activated a holographic display showing galactic development charts. Look at these numbers, honored ancients. Look at the rate of technological advancement across all council species over the last 10 millennia. It's functionally zero. You've created a system so focused on maintaining stability that you've forgotten how to grow. Elder Quantum, a being that existed in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, made a sound like probability waves collapsing. Stability has preserved peace for stability has preserved stagnation, Elena interrupted, causing another wave of shock through the assembly. Honored Elder, with respect, peace without progress isn't peace. It's slow death. The hierarch struck the speaking platform with its forearm. This is exactly the dangerous thinking we must prevent from spreading. Humans seek to disrupt the natural order. Elena's eyes flashed. Natural order? There's nothing natural about a galaxy where 3,000 different species can't solve problems that humanity figured out in 6 months. You want to know what's really dangerous? A civilization so afraid of change that it would rather suffocate than breathe. She manipulated the holographic display again. 6 months ago, the Zephyrian trade wars had been going on for 3 centuries because both sides were using the same predictable strategies their ancestors used. Humans solved it in 2 weeks by creating economic models neither side had considered. The Andromedan plague had been killing millions because the Council's medical protocols prohibited experimental treatments. Human doctors saved those worlds by ignoring your protocols and trying something new. The chamber had fallen silent. Even the hierarch seemed momentarily speechless. The void breach in the spiral arm, Elena continued, had been expanding for a millennium because your scientists kept trying to solve it with the same technologies that had failed for 1,000 years. Humans sealed it in 3 days by combining ethereal energy manipulation with crystal and matter state control in ways that should have been impossible according to your rules. Elder Vorthak leaned forward, its form rippling with dark energy. You suggest that chaos is preferable to order? I suggest that evolution is preferable to extinction, Elena replied. Honored Ancient, entropy is your domain. You know that systems which cannot adapt ultimately collapse. The galaxy's current system cannot adapt because it's too afraid to try. She gestured to the assembly around them. Look at this council. 3,000 species, and when was the last time any of you had a genuinely new idea? When was the last time any of you took a real risk? When was the last time any of you did something that scared you? The hierarch found its voice again. Human recklessness is not courage. It is dangerous irresponsibility. Elena smiled. Hierarch, let me tell you about dangerous irresponsibility. Yesterday, a human research team in the Outer Rim detected what your sensors classified as a minor spatial anomaly. Instead of filing a report and waiting for council approval to investigate, they went to look at it themselves. Do you know what they found? She manipulated the display to show a new star chart. A dormant builder installation. Not just any installation, a reality anchor. One of the mythical devices that your legends say could rewrite the fundamental laws of physics in localized space. Your scientists have been looking for one for 50,000 years. Humans found it because they were willing to investigate something that might have been dangerous. The chamber erupted in chaos. Builder installations were beyond legendary, they were the holy grail of galactic archaeology. The idea that humans had simply stumbled across one by being reckless was almost incomprehensible. But, here's the really interesting part, Elena continued over the noise. The installation was guarded by automated defense systems that your technology couldn't have defeated. But, humans didn't try to defeat them. We talked to them. Elder synthesis made a sound like equations solving themselves. Impossible. Builder constructs do not respond to communication. They don't respond to your communication, Elena corrected. They respond to creative thinking. To new approaches. To beings willing to try things that shouldn't work. The defense system had been waiting 50,000 years for someone to ask it a question nobody had thought to ask before. What if we don't want to take anything from you? What if we just want to learn? She paused, letting that sink in. The Builder construct is now sharing its archives with human researchers. We've learned more about galactic history in the last 24 hours than the Council has in the last 1,000 years. And, do you know what we learned, honored ancients? The chamber was completely silent now. We learned that this has happened before. The builders themselves were once like us, a young, reckless species that refused to accept the limitations imposed by the galactic status quo of their time. They were feared, opposed, and eventually exiled by the ancient council of their era. So they left, found new ways to grow, and became something transcendent. Elena's voice grew quiet but carried clearly through the vast chamber. The Builder Archive contains a message, honored ancients. A message for whatever species would eventually follow in their footsteps. That message is simple: the galaxy needs gardeners, not undertakers. She stood straighter. Humanity didn't come to the council to follow your rules. We came to help you remember what growth feels like. Because a galaxy that's afraid to change is a galaxy that's already dying. And, humans, honored ancients, don't let things die on our watch. The silence stretched for several moments before Elder Vorthak spoke. What do you propose, human? Elena smiled. We propose an experiment. Give humanity administrative authority over one sector of the galaxy. Let us show you what controlled chaos can accomplish. If we fail, you can confine us to our solar system as originally planned. But, if we succeed. If you succeed, the hierarch demanded. If we succeed, you agree to stop treating change like a disease and start treating it like the cure it actually is. The circle of ancients withdrew to deliberate, leaving the council chamber buzzing with conversation in 3,000 different languages. When they returned, Elder Synthesis spoke for them all. The experiment is approved. Humanity will be granted administrative authority over Sector 11. You have 1 galactic standard year to demonstrate the value of your approach. Elena nodded. Thank you, honored ancients. 1 year should be plenty. As the session ended and the various species began to file out, Lyrith Moon Whisper approached Elena again. Ambassador, may I ask you something? Of course. Are you not concerned that you may prove the hierarch right? That human recklessness could lead to catastrophe? Elena considered the question seriously. Ambassador, in all of human history, every great leap forward has been accomplished by people who were told it was impossible, dangerous, or irresponsible. Sometimes they were right about the danger. But, they were always wrong about the impossibility. The galaxy has been playing it safe for 50,000 years. I think it's time to see what playing it dangerous can accomplish. As she walked away, Elena couldn't help but smile. In 1 year, the galaxy would see what humans could do when they weren't fighting for survival. They would see what happened when humanity was given the freedom to build rather than simply adapt. The galaxy was about to learn that humans didn't just break rules. They built better ones. 1 year later, the emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the institution's 50,000-year history. Representatives from every major civilization had gathered not on Nexus Prime, but on Terra Nova, humanity's first artificial planet and the new capital of what was formerly known as Sector 11. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the assembled delegates, but she was no longer just representing humanity. Behind her sat representatives from 47 different species that had requested to join what was being called the human experiment. The holographic displays surrounding the assembly hall showed images that would have been considered impossible just 1 year ago. The hierarch of the Zelani, whose compound eyes had lost much of their former arrogance, spoke first. Ambassador Vasquez, the Circle of Ancients has reviewed the changes in Sector 11. The results are unprecedented. Elena nodded. Would you like me to summarize, or would you prefer the full report? Elder Vorthak, the ancient being of entropy, made a sound like cosmic winds. Summarize. Though we suspect the summary alone will challenge many long-held beliefs. Elena activated the first holographic display. In 12 standard months, Sector 11 has seen the following developments: the complete elimination of the hegemony war that had been raging for 800 years. The restoration of 17 dead worlds that had been considered permanently uninhabitable. The development of interspatial transit networks that have reduced travel time between systems by 94%. The establishment of the first truly universal translation protocol in galactic history. She paused, watching the ripple of amazement that went through the assembly. But those are just the technical achievements. The real revolution has been philosophical. A new voice spoke from the delegation, Dr. Kethmarin of the crystalline hegemony, one of the oldest and most conservative species in the galaxy. Ambassador, my people have observed your methods with great interest and considerable concern. You appear to have abandoned the principle of technological gradualness that has maintained stability for millennia. Elena smiled. Dr. Kethmarin, we didn't abandon gradualness. We proved it was an artificial limitation. Your own people are perfect examples. She activated a new display showing the crystalline worlds. For 50,000 years, your species believed that your crystal matrices could only process information at fixed harmonic frequencies. It was considered a fundamental law of crystalline nature. But, when human engineer Sarah Kim asked your people what would happen if you tried processing information at random frequencies, something interesting occurred. The display showed complex mathematical models. Your people didn't just discover they could process random frequencies, you discovered that random frequency processing increased your computational power by a factor of 10,000. The law that limited your development wasn't a law of nature. It was a law of habit. Dr. Kethmarin's crystal body resonated with what humans had learned was deep contemplation. The implications of this discovery have fundamentally altered our understanding of our own nature. Which brings us to the core principle of what we've been doing, Elena continued. Every species in Sector 11 has discovered that their perceived limitations were largely self-imposed. The hegemony war ended not because we forced peace, but because we helped both sides realize they were fighting over resources that could be created rather than conquered. A new delegate stood, High Conductor Zaktiach of the Harmonic Collective. Ambassador, my people's ability to manipulate sonic frequencies has increased beyond what we thought possible. But, this has raised concerns among some of our more traditional colonies. Elena nodded. High Conductor, change is always frightening. But, let me ask you this, would your people prefer to return to the limitations they believed were permanent? No, the response was immediate and firm. The new harmonics we have discovered have opened entire new forms of art, science, and communication that our ancestors never dreamed possible. The hierarch's mandibles clicked with what humans had learned was frustration. But, at what cost? The social structures that maintained order for millennia are being discarded. Elena turned to face the Zelani leader directly. Hierarch, would you like to know what we discovered about social order? She activated a complex sociological model. For 50,000 years, the galaxy has operated under the assumption that stability requires rigid hierarchy, that progress requires central planning, and that cooperation requires uniformity. We've proven that all three assumptions are wrong. The model showed interconnected networks spanning dozens of worlds. The most stable societies are those that can adapt quickly to change. The most progressive civilizations are those that encourage experimentation at every level. And, the most cooperative communities are those that celebrate diversity rather than suppress it. Elder synthesis made its characteristic sound of calculations resolving. These models suggest that galactic civilization has been operating at approximately 12% efficiency for millennia. Closer to 8%, Elena corrected. But, the important thing isn't how inefficient the old system was. The important thing is how much potential we've unlocked. She gestured to the assembled delegates. A year ago, the galaxy consisted of 3,000 separate civilizations, each following their own rigid development paths, each limited by their own perceived constraints. Today, Sector 11 contains 47 species working together, sharing technologies, combining approaches, and discovering possibilities none of them could have achieved alone. A new voice interrupted, ancient and resonant with power. Elder Quantum had spoken directly for the first time in recorded history. Human Ambassador, your experiment has succeeded beyond all projections. The question now is whether these methods can be scaled to the entire galaxy without causing civilizational collapse. Elena's expression grew serious. Honored Elder, that's exactly the wrong question. The statement sent shock waves through the assembly. No one had ever told an ancient their question was wrong. The right question, Elena continued, is whether the galaxy can survive without these changes. Because what we've discovered in Sector 11 isn't just a better way to organize civilization. It's evidence that the galaxy is facing an existential crisis that the old methods cannot solve. She activated a new display that showed galactic development curves. The rate of technological stagnation across Council space has been accelerating for the last 10,000 years. Birth rates among most species have been declining. Creative output has dropped to near zero. These aren't signs of a stable civilization, honored ancients. These are signs of a civilization in terminal decline. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. But there's something else, Elena continued. The Builder archives we discovered have revealed something that the Circle of Ancients already knows but has never shared with the Council. Elder Vorthax's form rippled with what could only be described as resignation. Speak. The galaxy is not alone. Beyond the galactic rim, there are other civilizations. And some of them are expanding toward us. Our long-range sensors have detected artificial energy signatures consistent with massive fleet movements approximately 50,000 light-years away and closing. The revelation hit the assembly like a physical blow. For 50,000 years, the galaxy had believed itself to be the only source of intelligent life in the local galactic cluster. The Builder's archives indicate that these civilizations have been expanding across the intergalactic void for millions of years, absorbing or destroying every galaxy they encounter. They call themselves the Harvest, and they're approximately 800 years away from our galactic border. Elena let the silence stretch before continuing. The Builders didn't transcend to a higher plane of existence, honored ancients. They left to find allies. And their final message indicates that they haven't found any. Every galaxy the Harvest has encountered has fallen because they were too rigid to adapt, too stable to evolve, too comfortable to fight. The hierarch's voice was barely a whisper. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that the galaxy has 800 years to become something the Harvest has never encountered before. 800 years to develop technologies they can't predict, strategies they can't counter, and capabilities they can't comprehend. 800 years to prove that chaos isn't the enemy of order, stagnation is. Elena activated one final display showing the projected development curves for the galaxy under the old system versus the new approach. Under the traditional Council methods, the galaxy will achieve perhaps 15% of its defensive potential by the time the Harvest arrives. Under the new methods, we project achieving capabilities that exceed even the Builder's final configurations. Elder Synthesis spoke slowly, its voice heavy with cosmic calculation. The mathematics support your conclusions. Traditional development curves indicate certain defeat. Exponential development curves indicate possible victory. More than possible, Elena corrected. Certain. Because humans have one advantage the Harvest has never encountered in any of the galaxies they've consumed. Which is? Elena smiled with the confidence that had become humanity's signature. We don't just adapt to challenges, honored Elder. We turn challenges into opportunities. The Harvest has spent millions of years perfecting the art of consuming static civilizations. They have no experience with a galaxy that gets stronger every time it's threatened. She stood straighter, addressing the entire assembly. 800 years from now, when the Harvest arrives, they're not going to find a galaxy cowering behind established defenses. They're going to find a galaxy that has spent 8 centuries learning how to do impossible things. They're going to encounter technologies that break their models, strategies that violate their predictions, and species that have transcended every limitation they thought was permanent. The vote, when it came, was unanimous for the first time in Council history. Not just to expand the human experiment to the entire galaxy, but to grant humanity emergency authority to restructure galactic civilization as rapidly as possible. As the session ended and the representatives began planning their return to their homeworlds with instructions to begin immediate implementation of humanity's methods, Elena received a private message from the Circle of Ancients. The message was brief: the Builders left coordinates. Time to call them home. Elena looked out the viewport at the bustling activity of Terra Nova's orbital shipyards, where representatives from 100 different species were already working together to design vessels that had never been imagined before. In 800 years, the Harvest would arrive expecting to find another static galaxy ripe for consumption. Instead, they would find humans. And humans didn't just fight their enemies. They taught their enemies why fighting humans was a mistake they would never get the chance to make twice. The galaxy was no longer going to play by the old rules. It was going to play by human rules. And human rules had only one principle: if something is impossible, you're not trying hard enough yet.